Hello there, Sarah from 17 once again. This is my Dead Space 3 Impossible Difficulty video walkthrough. This is Chapter 8, Off the Grid. Anyone who played the demo will recognise this sequence, but you'll also notice it's a little bit different than the time we did it on that little preview of the game. What I mean by this is there's a temperature gauge, or gauge depending on how you say it, and what this is going to do is it's essentially oxygen. When it runs too low, you die. You do a specific thing to make it go back up, which is stand by the fire, and it introduces this very interesting survival element that I really like. I like the idea of it. It is a little bit gimmicky, and I do think there's probably a better way of handling it. It's just the developers couldn't think of one, and I myself can't think of one either. But the concept of freezing to death and not freezing to death via something you do as a player is a cool direction to go. It's something that only happens until you get the other suit. I'm very curious if you can play the game without using the snow suit and always have the threat of the temperature, but the game itself doesn't populate every area with fire, and there are only so many indoor locations you can find, so that might be an interesting challenge run to attempt. But we're back to Dead Space, or it should be called Isaac Clarke Falls Down a Lot and Somehow Doesn't Break His Back, but I think Visceral thought that was a much less catchy title, and that's why it isn't the one. But there's a nice upgrade circuit, there's a bit of ammunition. The ammo can be difficult to find in the snow, mainly because it's in the snow. But at this moment in time, you'll notice I'm whipping out my scavenger bot a little bit more. That means that I've now transitioned from watching Dragon Ball Z to actually listening to the game. And I did this because I didn't want to miss some stuff. Because there's a couple of sequences in this campaign where you can get yourself into a really bad spot if you don't have the right equipment, and I found that out last night. There is a particular section excuse me, where you go into a cavity of some sort and you take on these extremely skinny, extremely fast, I think they're called feeders, something like that. They're annoying. They're a replacement for the little baby things, the little kids with the claw fingers. The fast, the generally weak, and the ambush you. I had a plasma cutter, and they were the black iteration, which means that they're stronger than the standard version. I had a really rough time, guys. I had to actually kite the enemies, as if I was playing zombies in Black Ops. I've never had to do that before on Dead Space, and I don't recommend getting yourself in that situation, and it's all because I didn't take a force gun. A force gun and something competent on top of it. But because I've made the mistake, and you get to watch my mistake, you will learn from it and you'll have no problems, but as it stands, that sequence sucked, and it was all because I went in with the wrong gear. But that essentially is the story of this game. Everybody's going to find their go-to assortment of weapons, their go-to assortment of circuits and equipment, and it's going to make it significantly easier for your playstyle. My particular one is a crowd controller and an accurate and highly damaging weapon. I've always been a javelin fan, but the javelin in this game seems a little underpowered for my tastes, so I'm using the Seeker rifle instead. The Seeker is a boss. If you can aim, you can kill. I'm experimenting with things underneath the plasma cutter because I can't get away from the plasma cutter. I just like it too much. I'm tempted to experiment with the Ripper when you fire the blades, because the Magnum is good and it knocks people over, but I like experimenting on this game. And one thing I would like to see is perhaps New Game Plus exclusive blueprints and exclusive attachments, even exclusive weapons. I would like to see secret and rare blueprints which give you a piece of equipment or a tip that changes all your weapons into something you haven't seen. I would love a very detailed and highly, full of depth weapon system in the game, because it does have a lot of nuance, it does have a lot of different facets, but I'm getting to the point where I think I've seen everything where I am on the game, and it would be nice if, even if it was DLC related, or every week or every month they release a whole bunch of different weapon attachments that completely make different guns. They could have a really good system. That combined with a scoring system, implemented in the single player and the co-op, maybe a leaderboard, something along those lines. It could make this one of those games that you keep coming back to just enjoy it again. And there is a lot of incentive for replay value, but it's all indicative of your enjoyment of the mechanics. And I do think the mechanics in this game they're by no means bad. They are up to par of all the games. But I think 2 kind of peaked for me. I think Dead Space 2 is flawless. It's not as scary, it's more action-packed, but everything just slots together. But all we're doing here is we're looking for opportunities to recover our heating, get our temperature up a little bit, so we're going inside, we're going near fires, you know, all that good stuff. I did not mean to grab the ladder then. Wanted to pick up the stuff, but this game and its detection when you press A is kind of funky. Thought there'd be something over here, can't see anything. Maybe it's an opportunity to drop a robot, it just wasn't pinging. And I really like this first area when you're trudging forward in the snow and you're not quite sure where you're going, you're not quite sure what you're going to find. And there's actually a moment of quiet here where the necromorphs aren't on you all the time. And if I could have an influence on the development of this game, I would have asked for more moments like this, because the whole reason why the encounters were so good in the previous games is because there was peaks and valleys. It wasn't just Michael Bay bullshit all the time. And unfortunately, because this game is becoming more mainstream and they're trying to widen it out to a broader audience to get bigger sales, because that's pretty much the EA business plan of every series they get their teams to work on, it's diluted a lot of the concepts that perhaps put people off playing it. Because survival horror games, everybody keeps going on about this illusion of what survival horror is. We want games like the original Resident Evil, we want games like Silent Hill, we want games like blah, we want this, we want that. Everybody's asking for this bygone era of survival horror games, and none of the developers are making them, and they're making them for a very obvious reason. Those survival horror games were a niche. They were. The gameplay on them was not stellar, it was clunky, it was awkward, it was intentionally mechanical. There was a lot of things that made it really inaccessible to any skill level gamer, any interest gamer. The puzzles were so just completely obfuscated, they were pointless. Sometimes they were the most eclectic things you could even think of. They were like adventure games with how random and stupid they were. They were generally big, they were generally hard, and even on the standard difficulty, it was easy to get conquered by those kind of games. And with the way that the industry's gone, making, you know, developers want you to see their games and want you to get to the end of the games, those kind of survival horror games can only exist for a very small percentage of people who want that kind of game. And in today's market, where we don't get the B games, we don't get the C games, because there's not that many dev houses working, because when they do release a pile of shit or something that doesn't meet expectations, they swiftly get closed because games cost so damn much now. Everything has to have a ridiculous budget, and if it doesn't make it back, you're canned. And this makes these studios not want to risk potentially, you know, going bankrupt, potentially losing their jobs, and they make safe sequels as opposed to fresh new IPs. And when fresh new IPs come along, they're generally only by the bravest and boldest in the industry, and they have an almost unlimited resource behind them to make sure that they're absolutely amazing games. And these smaller teams that might have a fantastic idea are pretty much relegated to the indie scene, which is not a bad thing, but bringing it back to the survival horror aspect is, because of the nature of where games have gone and how popular they've become, they can't make those games anymore, guys. They just can't do it, because there's not the audience for it. And a lot of people might be thinking, there is the audience for it, I want it. Well, unfortunately, Capcom doesn't tailor to you. Capcom has to hit a budget line, they have to get profit, they have to make a business from what they're doing. And a couple 100,000 people who want a really tough, really stern, really strict, really punishing, really scary horror game aren't a big enough crowd when they can make a super accessible, super easy to control, ridiculously action-packed, every 2 minutes they're throwing monsters at you, which anybody of every skill level and every measure of maturity can play. And that there is an audience of millions, and they're going to take millions every day over any number that's less than that. And the games suffer for this. because every game now is this spastic love affair of rapid pace, frenetic action, and it's almost as if we're afraid of subtlety. And when a game does come along that's quite subtle, it's either rewarded or it's... That was cheap right there, didn't like that. Turn the corner, get commando swung by that douchebag. Not a fan. And it's just how it is. And it's gone the same with a lot of games. And unfortunately that is the future, but at the same time when this happens, it does force other developers, smaller developers, to make the more obscure and more unaccessible games. And then you get things like Dark Souls, which is pretty much flying the flag for, you know, games that still kick you in the teeth. And it's just a shame that there aren't other genres that have a developer doing what Dark Souls is doing, and kind of revitalising that old school gamer mentality with fresh ideas. And it's not to everyone's taste, because we're all different, but it's worth your time. Like, there are so many games now that are so average, you can't even say they're bad, but they just don't excite you. And I would rather a team take a risk to excite me than to just, you know, placate me with average delivery. And I know that that is not a business model, because that's not how it can work. Breaking even is never going to be successful in games, because games are so expensive now. It's a double-sided sword. And hopefully, when the next generations of consoles come through, all the pioneers, all the big names, all the well-funded studios will be trying something new instead of this barrage of sequels. If they don't, I don't know. I can see a stagnation happening, and I can see a rethink probably going forward. And we might be in the same situation that Hollywood is with films, where it's kind of rare to get a good film, but when you do, it's generally really pretty, you know, really, really tasty. And a lot of the times, you're looking to the smaller budget flicks to get the real quality scripts and the awesome performances. So this section here, if you didn't notice, the necromorphs move under the snow. They give you a nice little trail, and they pop up when you're close to them. They never come on their own. There's always more than one of them. Make sure you've got some guns that can deal with them. Use whatever techniques at this moment in time are working for you, and just be prepared to take on more necromorphs than you used to. As always, putting your back against a wall can help, as long as that wall does not have a vent on it where more necros can come from. It's kind of Dead Space 101. We're 8 chapters deep, so I think you probably know that by now. But we're about to go inside. For anybody that's not enjoying this, really difficult to see blizzard environment. It's kind of sporadic in how it works. Sometimes you'll run forward and the blizzard will completely vanish, like it's just blown over. Other times it's pretty rampant like this. But we're about to get a new suit. We're about to be reintroduced to a character that I forgot the first time I met and have absolutely no emotional connection to. I'm going to do a little bit of light puzzle solving, but a lot of that is going to be in chapter 9. So for the most, we've got a fight coming. There you go, there's the trails in the snow. That's one necro popped up. That's 2 more following him. That's a puker. One good thing about the pukers is their puke travels in a straight line, so you can outstrafe it, you can roll past it. Just be aware, it moves a lot faster than you think it would. They've definitely overhauled the pukers in a lot of subtle ways, and I do prefer them before, because before they were slow moving projectile tanks, and I think that's a cool idea. Dead Space 3 though seems to be all about speed. It seems to be just visceral, everything visceral, everything fast, everything in your face, everything chopping at your ankle. I can hear beeping on the screen, which I assume is because my temperature's getting quite low. So anybody thinking that I should put a robot down right now, I think it's because my body temp is in some serious trouble. There goes a couple more necros, a couple more dismemberments, working towards that. Is it 500 dismemberment achievement? And the door is to your right, just here. But it's an ambush, so just be aware there is 3 more necromorphs. He's doing the windmill move, which I don't quite understand. And I think, like, I'm doing a couple of shots there. You can use kinesis to check see if the body is dead. But sometimes on this game you can't pick bodies up, so it can be a little bit misleading. So I always like to either throw a talon at them or shoot them, because as sparse as the ammo is on this game, so far in this walkthrough I haven't bought ammo once. There's only one point in the game where I actually bought more ammo, and that's because my Seeker rifle was running out and I was getting killed. And I bought one pack, and the next attempt I did it. So if you're buying a lot of ammo, you will have no issue with a lot of this game. If you're not buying ammo and you're just trying to do it, you know, the traditional scavenge pickup type deal, which this playthrough is pretty much. A couple times you'll feel like you've got too much ammo, then all of a sudden you'll feel like you don't have enough. It's a very interesting balance. You get far more medpacks than you do ammunition, which makes no sense. And when you dismantle the medpacks, all it gives you is somatic gel, which enables you to make more medpacks, which is fucking pointless. But thanks for watching, guys, and you take care now.